Hi, this is Sir Flobojan Thunderhammer.
And I'm King Cabbage Tidehammer.
And this is WAK. We got a couple of serious ones under our belt.
I slept with the king.
And you become the champion day one and walk out.
I'm surprised your beards didn't get Velcroed together.
Explain that. You have to explain.
I haven't a clue.
That's why.
Some sort of LARP thing. I survived that. I'm not going to murder you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to WAK, where we discuss topics important to the Kingdom of Winter's Edge, interview the Amtgard community at large. Man, you jinx me. You jinx me. You had this whole like, oh, you got it.
You had three that were perfect. Finish the damn intro.
He's not going to cut this. Nope. So, hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to WAK, where we discuss topics important to the Kingdom of Winter's Edge, interview the Amtgard community at large, and talk with interesting people from around the foam fighting world. This week, we have on Six Promethea. I can't even get the name right. This is horrible. I swear we clarified this before we started recording.
Not 10 seconds ago, you had it right. Promethea, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure.
Oh, so the thing we always start with when we have people on, aside from thanks for coming on, is obviously tell us how you got into Amtgard. What drew you into the game? What keeps you going now? Kind of give us that starting place.
Absolutely. So I started playing in 2004. I'm originally from Ontario, Canada, so most of my time was spent playing in Goldenvale and then what is now the kingdom, thank God, of the Nine Blades. I started playing in like what I would consider a pretty typical fashion. I was in high school and my boyfriend played and he said, come out here. And I said, this sounds awful. This sounds like this is a big public park. And then another friend of mine played and she said, look, I have all this garb. You can wear stuff, come out. And then the first day I went, I was like, no, this is really still awful. I don't like it. And then I went back 6 months later and something clicked and I went, okay, no, this is like the way that I want to spend my weekends. So yeah, that would be, oh my God, 16 years ago.
Let's just say it was 6 years ago, so I feel like I'm still young. No? Okay, that's fine. So, okay, you're originally in Ottawa. That was part of, you said, Goldenvale?
So when Ottawa started, it was part of Goldenvale under the Principality of the Nine Blades, which is now the Kingdom of the Nine Blades. So that's fully moved over, but I moved out.
Did you guys send the jugging team down to what's Goldenvale's big event that they do?
Great Eastern.
So the Great Eastern had a Canadian jugging team that they sent down for Great Eastern that was around 2005 or 6.
Oh my goodness, that wouldn't have been the Nine Blades in 2006. That would have been just a Canadian player-made jugging team, but 100% would have been the same people as a lot of people in the kingdom have been there the whole time. Like, nice. We have players who've been playing in Ontario for like 20 odd years at this point.
So wait, I have a question. Nine Blades, we just approved them as a kingdom at Clan this year.
Yes.
I guess depending on when this podcast comes in 2020. Yeah. Whatever.
Yes.
How long was Nine Blades a principality?
Oh boy, the Nine Blades was probably a principality longer than any other principality. I feel that it's been going on for a decade.
We have a challenger.
Because Sir Flo has long stated, and I believe that Winter's Edge was the longest held principality. We were like 10 or 15 years?
No, we were, let's see, we got it in 2017, so 16 years.
So Nine Blades might actually be longer.
You'll have to definitely take a look at that in the orc, because I know that it has like the original principality name and everything in it, but it was from the time that I was like in and then dropping out of college to the time I moved. I'd already moved out to Denver by the time it was by the time it was petitioning for kingdom. I had already moved to Denver to live here, so it's a while.
Is Wolf and Fang, was that the name of one of your groups? Because that's where I'm going back to this Canadian jugging thing, because this is an amazing connection. Do you recognize Wolf and Fang or Wolf and Blade or something like that?
Wolf and Fang is the oldest park in Ontario. They're based in Sudbury, Ontario.
That's
yes,
them.
I've been there. The biggest event that is held in Ontario is held there every single year in August. Very familiar. So there's a high likelihood I know the members of that team and would be able, if you had a picture, would probably be able to tell you who they were.
So I have to tell this. I have to do a complete aside here because I'm a total fanboy of the Wolf and Fang.
We are 4 minutes into the episode and we are getting a flow story. This is the fastest.
So in 2002, a group of former rogues from Florida and a couple of chuckleheads from Tennessee hop on a tour bus and head to GE, whatever year it was.
Sounds like 2002.
Yeah. I don't know whether it was GE 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Right.
But it was the one in 2002. That is the event where the triads form, for those in Winter's Edge that's looking for a little bit of trivia there. My fighting company formed at that event. I was not part of it. And so the event organizers decide to hold a jugging tournament. And one of the teams that happens to be there that enters we just call them the Canadian crew. And so they didn't bring any poles. I'm not sure if they flew down or they drove, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to fit any poles with them. Florida had brought up some fire-hardened bamboo with them. So, and you may have heard Sir Gillen tell this story before, but he's sitting there, selling.
We act like that fire-hardened bamboo was like the same wood used to make the Stradivarius violins. Like, oh, it came from a certain humidity and it's perfect and it never cracks. Like that shit still gets, I've still got a piece of the bamboo.
Listen, it's because it's true.
Okay.
I have some sitting in the corner right over there.
God damn it, you really do.
So this is taking place right beside a little lake. And it's kind of on a sloping hill. And this gentleman comes up and says, a jugging tournament later. And Zeb goes, oh yeah, we're going to be participating in it. And he said, what he actually said was, about how much are these? But what Zeb heard was, a boat, how much are these? He goes, a boat, how much are these? And Zeb says, a boat? On that lake? There's no way, man. And he's not saying it to be funny or sarcastic or anything. It's actually what he heard, and he thought the guy was trying to make small talk. And he's like, come on, man. I'm just going to sell. And so the guy ends up buying one of the sticks of fire-hardened Stradivarius bamboo. And they make a poll and they compete. They come out to theme music. They had brought a little boom box and they come back at dun, 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 and they're circling their side of the field, and they come over and circle the opponent's side of the field. They do the thing where they run by and they clap everybody's hand on the way through and things like that. After every single point, they were their own cheerleaders, where they were doing cheerleader dances and stuff. After 100 stones, where it was halftime, they did a halftime performance and then came back out and did the whole laps around the court again. Jesus. It was the most, I'd been in the game for 2 years at this point. Most amazing thing that I'd seen up to that point. But that wasn't the best part.
Oh man.
The best part was their jerseys.
Oh my God.
So
original E-team jerseys. Very important and iconic.
Right? They had made their own jugging jerseys. And so the triad stuff that you see in there that Winter's Edge has seen me wear out, are hockey jerseys and things like that. Pale comparisons. This is where we got the idea from originally.
Do we have a picture of these somewhere? I'd put them in the video.
I can send you a picture of my A-Team jersey, which was the 2014 replica re-release. In 2014, we sent I think 25 Canadian players, including myself, went to Keep, and we decided that it was time to get new jerseys made. So I have a jersey. I will find it, and I can definitely send you a picture.
Excellent. Yeah, that would be perfect.
So they're quick. Numbers were 00.
Perfect.
And the name was Skullfucker. The slash was named I Swear She Was, and was number 18.
Oh, Jesus. No.
The worst part is I know that I can go, who had these numbers, and I'll have at least one friend who will be like, oh, that was definitely, and then I'll know.
So all of the other amazing things that they did, I didn't notice the name and numbering scheme on the jerseys until we were halfway through. One of them had the Omega symbol and then just a hyphen, so it looked like a dick and balls for the number. It was, everything about them was good. When they won and they were just having fun with it, and they came over and they hugged the other team. When they lost, they were just having fun with it, and they came over and they did the little high five line, except after the when they finally got lost out, instead of doing the hey and circling around, they did the shuffle walk high five, like good game. But it was all like an over the top act.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right?
I love that.
And and of course the opposing team, after they did the little shuffle walk act, went over to their boombox and hit play on the song again. So everybody started dancing, and
That's awesome.
Right.
no, so that was my first exposure to the Canadian groups, was boats on a lake and jugging with crazy jerseys.
I'm gonna make sure that I would be shocked to learn that one of those players was not who is now Sir Godwin. And if that is the case, I will be 100% sure to send him this episode so he can appreciate how other people appreciated what would become kind of a weird rolling theme of polite competition anytime a large contingent went to a U.S. event.
Yeah.
We need more of that, like 100%.
Oh, we really do. And jugging in particular, it can be a little over competitive.
I like
over-aggressive.
jugging. I don't care.
But they made it fun and fun to watch, and they were a really good, really organized team as well. So yeah, please let him know. He won't remember me. I was a skinny nobody at the point. Now I'm a fat
Sure.
nobody. But tell him Sir Flo down in Winter's Edge remembers that, and it was impactful on his young Amtgard career.
I absolutely will.
So you come from Canada to I guess what was Nine Blades to now you are in Iron Mountains. What makes that move happen? Is it just real life, that kind of thing? And then what was it like moving to a completely different kingdom in a completely different country? Was that a huge leap? I know Canada and the US aren't so distant, but still.
Yeah, so personal life, relationship, moved here, got married, bought a house, all that jazz. The difference is, at first I thought the kingdoms, because I'd been under Goldenville for so long, at first I thought the kingdoms were very different. And the longer I was here, the more I realized they were very similar, because they both are kingdoms from like the first 7, like they're very, very early kingdoms. Iron Mountains, I would say, is smaller, tighter, and I think like more inclusive, and which is not even to say that Goldenvale is not inclusive, just that Iron Mountains is even more so. Oh, wow. But there are some things that I like, myself and Kelladry, who also moved out here from Goldenvale, both find we miss. Bardics we miss tremendously, and role playing.
Not a huge Bardic tradition here either.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I think it's the way that it presents itself is also definitely regional, because like when I think of Bardic, Canadian Bardics in like New York, like Goldenvale property Bardics tend to be like campfire drunk sing songs where you all teach each other stuff that you don't like. You sing a lot of Great Big Sea and like Irish folk songs, like that kind of stuff. And the first time I came out to a Bardic, more Western, everybody was doing individual performances. And I was like, this is beautiful, but I'm too drunk for this. I can't go in there. They'll know. So it was a nice transition. And you would be shocked maybe you wouldn't be shocked to learn how many Americans don't realize that Colorado is not colder than Ontario.
No, I believe that.
Yeah.
When I moved here, people were like, when I was planning to move here, people were like, oh my God, it's going to be so cold. And I'm like, no, it gets down to -40 in Ottawa, and the coldest, that's Celsius and Fahrenheit, in case you're curious. But the coldest it gets here is like -10 Fahrenheit, which is a gift after, 31 years of living in Ontario.
I heard that, and my jacket went to hell.
I think it sounds lovely.
My hands don't work when it gets cold. No, thank you.
Oh, mine either. Yeah, no, I don't like it.
Yeah. So how do we get the name Promethea? Because this is a really cool name, and I have a Warhammer 40K themed theory, but I don't think it's right. So how do you get the name Promethea? Is that assigned, or do you pick it?
And a long name. Your Amped Wiki, it takes up like 2 lines.
I would have to go back to check on it, but I think I know what it says. Promethea is directly stolen from an Alan Moore comic. Like no other reasoning behind it. I was looking to, I think I'm one of the only amp artists who has successfully fully rebranded, and then I had a different name when I started, and I no longer have that name because I decided like I don't like that chapter, and like what if we did something else? And when I was looking for names, it came down very narrowly between Promethea, a comic I picked up while waiting for a bus and then bought the whole set, and Brienne. Brienne is because I am almost 6 feet tall, and people are both very flattering and very unoriginal. So a very sweet name.
I'm sure, yeah.
It felt Game of Thrones, like season 3 was on and everybody was talking about it. And I thought to myself, like, I can't do this to myself.
Right.
So Promethea instead.
Okay, no, that's awesome. And so real quick, I want to pause here because Flo has actually said before that he managed to rebrand and will never tell us what his original persona was or anything like that. Maybe if you tell us yours, he'll tell us his?
No.
Coward. Weak.
No one alive knows now.
No one alive?
No one alive is very ominous.
I'm a call Zeb. That's Jeff's phone. I can't.
Zeb doesn't know. Shalazar renamed me, and Zeb doesn't know what the original
so
name is.
Shalazar knows.
No, I don't think Shalazar knows.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us, if you care to, your rebranding story, if it's worth telling, or if you want to.
Oh, sure. So, we're all 14 with Yahoo email addresses at one point in our lives.
Yes.
So before I played Amtgard, I was involved in an online forum role-playing community for like 2 or 3 years. And when I needed to create a character for that roleplay, I didn't really know what to do for a name. And so my original persona was, because I read a lot of fantasy novels, an assassin with no parents who's very edgy. And because I really couldn't settle on a name. I'm kind of particular about that. Like, names are very important to me, and especially in like writing and stuff. I just started typing out letters on the keyboard until something resembling a pronounceable name came out. And my original character name, which might be in my Amped wiki, or maybe just
it is, but I have no idea how it's pronounced.
It's pronounced Shailing.
Oh, okay,
and after a long time of having it, somebody said, "Is your character Asian?" And as a white woman, what a horrible question. And I was like, I just don't really want to address that. And then, as I played Amtgard longer, I was like, I could just use a name change in general. First, so I never have to deal with this question again. And secondly, so I can just like redo my name, redo my heraldry, like do a whole new situation.
Oh man, I love your heraldry so much too.
Thank you.
This wine goblet thing, this is awesome. Who did that?
I did.
Oh, excellent.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I wanted to get a little sort of tarot symbolism in there, and it infuriates traditional heraldry enthusiasts to no end because teal does not exist in traditional heraldry. And somebody goes, well, it's blue and green, to the point where when I got knighted, I had one version that was green with green and one version that was blue with blue. And I'm like, you know what? It's close enough. You all did your best. You looked at the digital screen. It was a different color. I understand how we got here.
I'm colorblind. I don't understand the concept of teal either, but I feel like that's different.
It's a little different, but like, how different can it really be?
Teal also doesn't exist, so there.
Interesting concept.
Yeah.
So I want to read your name out as it appears on the Amped Wiki, and I'm choosing me to do it because I'm going to really fuck it up.
I'm ready.
Here we go.
So, no, you have to correct me when I fuck it up. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's Spectre.
Spectre.
Very close.
Yeah. 6.
Correct.
Promethea.
Yes.
Dylan in quotations?
Correct.
What's the Dylan?
This is the silliest thing. So there are 3 very active Dylans, players whose human name is Dylan, in what is now Kingdom of the Nine Blades and Golden Vale. And then they formed the Council of Dylans, where they're just a bunch of really sweet dudes who hang out at events together, very friendly, and like they're really a joy to be around. And I made a joke about being an honorary Dylan, and they took it very seriously. And so now I am an honorary Dylan, which is why that's in quotes, because that's not actually my name. Obviously.
The Council of Dylans has spoken.
That's correct. And you do not, when a council speaks to you, there's like only a few circumstances where you're going to be like, no, thank you. And that was not one of them.
And so after that, and you need to be ready for this one.
I'm ready.
Kintsugi?
Kintsugi.
You got it the first.
Kintsugi.
You got it the first time. That's good.
Oh,
I
Kintsugi.
would not use
You
the
were wrong.
Japanese pronunciation because I am not that good at languages. So, but yeah, that was also not my original character name, which was like one of the like older. You know how in the before time in like the pre 2010s there were lots of like heritage names that were passed down, like Andalsa and things like that. I had that as a heraldry name, but my partner at the time, when I was looking to redo my name, suggested I take Kintsugi, which is the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, as like a good metaphor for kind of my personality as a whole, both what I like to do and sort of how I've rebuilt myself over time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I find that, and I'm not joking, I find that to be a genuinely cool thing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My name is just Cabbage.
I love it. Don't get me wrong.
So if I was actually thinking we could do something like that for you, Cabbage, it would need to be something like dumpster fire.
Well, as a fun fact, there's no like law, there's no rules regulating Kintsugi, and the 5 people who are in my surname took that themselves because they liked it. You could be Cabbage Kintsugi and no one could stop you, nor would they.
I'm thinking about it. Hold on.
All right.
I need to put thought to
don't
this.
decide now. Yeah, names are important. You think on that one for a while.
So after that, it's first exclamation point, 1 exclamation point, Canadian.
Yes. That one is so there is a park called Empire's Grove that's in New York City, and despite the proximity of Ontario and New York City is like not close to both most of New York State and Ontario, and in the whole length of that park existing, which I think was at that point maybe 6 or 7 years, no Canadian players had ever been there.
They're right there.
They drew up an award on the spot and they awarded it to me before I left.
Was it crayons and napkins? Like, please.
It was pencil, and like it was done by oh my god, my name is completely blank. I was like, it was done by Maggie, whose game name I will remember momentarily, and she sketched it for me, and I have it in my like very precious, like all my high level and custom awards are in like a little binder. It's in there.
This is like a recurring theme where people are like, oh, I hand drew that guy's award as a joke. And he's like, yeah, but he still got it on his wall. We've had 3 different people say that they've done a hand-drawn award or a really crappy award, and it's still hanging up because it means something, and that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the personalized part. It means a lot.
So 2 more things on that I really want to touch on here. One is below the name, it says, and this seems to be a quote from you, do we have any additional questions that aren't Droplet related, which I think Winter's Edge can really identify with on multiple levels?
It's about you, if that helps.
Excellent.
It does.
During one of the Circle of Monarchs meetings, there was just like a joke between Wetlands and Winter's Edge about who owned. This is literally, I wrote the minutes for this meeting because I was XCOM secretary. No. It's in the minutes where both parties were arguing about the property ownership of the Droplet. This went on.
This
went on for a little while, and then eventually it got to a lull, and I said, do we have any additional questions that aren't Droplet related? And we didn't, and so we moved on to another topic.
We're bad people. We need to send better people to those.
No. It worked out very well.
You fucker.
Got that one in.
I win. Yeah.
There's Diet Coke in my nose.
Not so subtle jabs there. Yes, dance for me, Bellings.
Listen. I'm doing my fucking best, okay?
So, and then the last thing that we kind of touched on this with yours similarly. You mentioned that you kind of wanted to tarot it up a little bit. That might not have been your exact words, but so it
tarot it up.
Tarot it up. Yeah, I'm gonna tarot.
I
it
love
up.
it. I think
Flo's gonna tarot it up on the dance floor later, guys. To the disco room.
So, it mentions here that you started a tarot card deck out of Amtgarders from Goldenvale.
That's true.
And there's a link to it. We'll link your Amp Wiki in here, but there's a link to it here in the Amped Wiki.
Yes.
So what was the inspiration behind that? And is the project done, or is it ever done? Or are you doing new revisions?
So we've been thinking about, frankly, redoing everything as like, so the project is myself and Glyn. Glyn is a talented traditional illustrator, and I am a graphic designer. So she would draw the cards, and then I would raster them and then ink them with Photoshop. We have definitely thought about redoing them from scratch because our work is now better than it was in 2013 or so, whenever we started. But I'm just a big tarot enthusiast, if you like. Like, I'm a tarot reader. I have been for a long time. And Maria, Glyn, has always been very fond of like the tarot imagery. And so we thought, like, why don't we just assign people? And like, that would be a fun thing. And so she sent me a partial list, and then I sent her back a more completed list of like matching up our friends with these very specific meanings. And then we had a full deck and went, oh no, like, what have we done? And then she just started to draw them. And so I would say like once a month, I would get like a very beautiful illustration, and then I would turn around and color it, and we would post it up somewhere. I would really like to keep working on it. And I just, with the caveat, this year has been a disastrous year for creative efforts.
A bit of a toilet, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I would like to work on that again. And it is a project I'm very proud of and happy about. But yeah, something that kind of fell by the wayside as, you know, life things happened.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes so people can take a look, and maybe, you know, some inspiration will come from that.
That would be great.
Okay. I actually lost the Amped Wiki page. Damn it. I was hoping someone else had it pulled up and could buy me 2 seconds of time. I apologize.
So I'm actually looking over some of the art for the cards here, which is linked from the link there in the Amped Wiki. This is really cool.
Yeah, this was an enjoyable project. Like, it was a little bit of a complicated project too, because when you take something that has like established meaning over the course of several hundred years, and you go, my friend is this card, there's always a little bit of a concern that they're going to read something into it. Like, we assigned Sir Godwin the death card, and we had to be like, hey, so I want you to actually read this before you are mad that I made this for you. Yeah. Because I promise it's not as negative as, you know, I guess common perception is. So that was probably one of the best parts of that project, was showing people the card and then giving them something to read about the card and having them come back and be like, wow, this is great. I really like this. Because every time that happened, and that made us feel good, like we've matched them up with something that actually makes sense. And in a couple of occasions, they were like, do you really think about me that way? In like a positive way. And we were like, yeah, Maria wouldn't have spent all this time drawing it if we didn't. Because, you know, when we think of that symbolism, we think of you. And so it ended up being like it was a personal project to begin with, but it became a more personal project as we went on. Did
you have anyone who had negative feedback towards it, or just didn't want to do it or something like that?
No, not at all. We had people asking if they were further in the deck, and we refused to tell them.
Excellent.
Oh.
Yeah.
How many cards are in a tarot deck? I've never dabbled with it myself. So, I mean, is it a fixed number? Is it 52 or like what?
It's the same as a deck of playing cards. They're the same.
So 52.
You could theoretically, if you wanted to, you know, a little bit picky, you could use a set of playing cards to read tarot. Picky in the sense that you have to decide how you're going to match up the suits.
Right.
But you could do it with a deck of playing cards if you wanted to, because the same number and the same values in some cases.
Yeah. Okay. So we move from what was 9 Blades, or what would become 9 Blades, to now Iron Mountains. You've been very active in Amtgard politics for a while. I know when we talked to Sir Randall, he talked about you being XCOM secretary, I think, and you mentioned it just a moment ago. Mm-hmm. And recently you were also on the Circle of Monarchs with me at Clan.
You doing all right there, bud?
I'm trying to forget it, to be honest.
You were there.
It was 14 hours. I wish I wasn't.
We all wish we weren't.
Yeah, right. So you get your first belt in, was this 2016?
that sounds right. 4 years ago, that seems accurate. Yeah.
So Knight of the Flame in 2016. Tell us about that a little bit. Like, what is that like to get elevated, and what was your experience like going through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot to unravel there, so I'll try to see if I can get it more concise in my head. Right. For me, it felt like it had been a long time, and I know that I feel like there's a couple of different players tend to be in generations with something we learned from like past Amtgard audits, where like if you stay after 7 years, you tend to stay forever. Like if you make it to the 7-year mark, you tend to stay until you're, until you decide that you're like, my bones no longer work.
Who else said that? Was it you, Flo, or somebody? We've heard something very similar.
It's kind of been a common nomenclature type thing around Winter's Edge too, because like, what is it? Like the average Amtgarder's lifetime is like 2 or 3 years, but if you go past that, basically you're in for good.
Yeah, this was a couple of years ago, so like the data is probably out of date now, but it used to be like players fell into the 1, 2, and 3 year category, and then there was nobody who had been playing for between 3 and 7 years. Oh, and nice. And then above that, it became like you had 7 years, and then above that you had like 20 years. Yeah, it was just like everybody lumped into these specific categories, but for I think a certain generation of Amtgarder, there was a little bit more of the you have to earn the award by doing specific actions to hit specific levels, but that's not really spelled out. And so for me, I had given up on getting a knight's belt at approximately the time I was awarded my Master Rose. And I was like, it's never going to happen. I should stop caring about it. I should just work on things that I enjoy. What does it matter? And then by the time I got my Masterhood, I had to rethink that entire process again and be like, is this important to me? Is this actually something I want? Like, what does this get me? Like that kind of stuff. And get me like emotionally, not like material goods. Like what kind of gifts am I going to get when I get my belt? But like almost all of the work I had done to that point was dominantly service. I like running events. I like doing quests. I like just organizing is something I find myself falling into more often than not. And when I got the belt, I can tell the perfect antidote to explain how I felt when I got my belt. All of my friends were there. It was very emotional. It was a very sweet ceremony that was held at Great Eastern also. Mm-hmm. And when I was leaving, I was walking with my squires that I had made approximately like 30 seconds after the knighting was all done. I was like, and now it is time for the belts. And we started walking across the field, and this kid, I'm not 100% sure I know whose kid this was.
Oh no.
And this kid came up to me and was like, Sir Promethea, and my entire body just shriveled. I was like, this is a bizarre experience. I am this kid's first knight. Oh my God, this is going to happen more. Oh no. Thinking about the knights that I'd met and how like important they were to me at the exact moment. Mm-hmm. I was like, I can never fuck up ever again in my entire life. Also, I hope I can swear because boy howdy.
Yeah, I've said fuck a couple of times. We're good on that.
It was a very important moment. It included me in a very small circle of Canadian knights at that time, which was very important to me. And it felt good overall, but that moment, 5 minutes after my knighting was over, completely changed my perspective for the foreseeable future on how I present myself as a person.
So you said service-related things. Was there anything in particular that you did that kind of quote-unquote pushed you over the top, or one of your more proudest moments in service?
I think my 10th rose is for all of her service, which is the kind of thing that happens when people go, this person should get an award, and we're not 100% sure how to do. I can say that one year I did every major event. Like I was on every major event team, if not running every major event that happened in Golden Vale. Just worked out that way. So like had an event in March, and then an event in May, and then an event in June. And like people asked me to do stuff and I would just do it. So I think it hit the point where they were like, we have to do something. Yeah. And so they just did for all of your work, which, overall is fine. But I did more stuff than just event autocrating, but all of my awards notes are for autocrating. So I must have at least done an okay job at that, because that's what's in all the notes for all of those awards.
Right. So, I mean, looking at your Amped Wiki, because it's an invaluable source at this point,
Excellent.
I mean, you have Knight of the Flame, obviously, Master Rose, duh, but also Master Dragon and Master Smith. Those are like Master Smith is one that kind of escapes me as to like I don't think Winter's Edge has awarded one yet. We're close, but I don't think we've awarded one yet, have we?
No, I don't think we
haven't. No,
I should know that as the Monarch of Winter's Edge. Clover.
Yeah,
He's got 9
Clover,
Smiths.
Clover or Vash, one of the two.
wow.
Though.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you get to, Master Dragon, we all kind of understand, arts and sciences in general. Master Smith, though, how do you pull that off?
Yeah, so I could probably do a whole other hour podcast about the award system, especially service awards, and like how they are delineated and how it can be confusing.
Go on.
But in Golden Vale, Smiths are often given out for quest writing and class writing. So the way that I've always perceived it is Smiths are something you give out when a person benefits the community in like an active way. So instead of like you run an event and people might go, like when you do a demo or you host a demo, that's a great Smith in my mind, because you're doing something that benefits the people you play with, but also people who don't necessarily play. So, you can bring your 14-year-old kid to a quest and like they might have a good time and play Amgard. You have no idea. So my first half of my Smith ladder is for quest writing and quest running exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it went on, I started getting Smiths for the second component of what I like Smiths for documentation, one of my favorite things in the entire world. Because again, it benefits the community in kind of a tacit way.
Flo is rolling his eyes so hard he's popping his neck.
yeah. And that's rolling my head, not rolling my eyes. Those have two different.
The eyes went
meanings.
first and then the head. It counts.
I mean, the whole thing had to go. I strove so much to build documentation in my terms as prime minister. I mean, you sink or swim on your what is it? Institutional knowledge. Amtgard in a lot of ways is institutional knowledge, and if you don't have a good way to pass that down, you can't get mad when people don't do it.
It's 100% the case. It's like any time a monarch steps into the circle of monarchs and they're, they've been playing 2 years. We had one of the kings of Golden Vale, Noodles, another great food-related name.
You gotta make a household or something.
He'd been playing for 3 years, I think, when he was on the circle of monarchs, and he was just like, this is a lot. And there was no way to teach him, right? Because like if you don't know any other monarchs, like what do? Do you go to another monarch and go, I'm a dumb idiot who doesn't know how to do this thing?
That's what I did. I was gonna say that's what I did, and that's why I like you. You saved my ass.
Hey, that is in part because when I was on the XCOM and when I was volunteer coordinator, which would later become human resources director for AI, I spent a lot of time writing role descriptions and documentation and getting corpora together because that is part of my real job. And there is nothing more, this probably says a lot about me as a person, there's nothing more infuriating than somebody asking me something that I've written down in a publicly accessible location and just being like, it's right there.
Yeah. Cabbage and I work together, and we have a saying at our workplace. I don't know, man. Is that in the wiki?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same at my current workplace. At my previous workplace, it's like, is there a guru card for that? Could you just be looking that up right now? So my higher Smiths are for the volunteer coordinator job listings and for some of the content. Like I'm going to say I think because I feel like I was helped, but I cannot recall anything about any length of time ago. I rewrote the contracts team process and like built some stuff and like built some workflows for them at that time and a few other things. Anything where basically if I have to be put in a job and someone's going to give me nebulous expectations of what to do, I have already started writing a process because I need it to live. I need a path or it's going to go very sideways very quickly.
So much of what you said just triggered myself and Flo. That is our work to a T. It's upsetting.
Yeah, I'm currently being moved so I can work and do some of the knowledge management at my current job, which is what I did at my previous job. And I am very excited, but I need my boss to just leave me alone with the knowledge base for a couple of days.
Right.
That would help me immensely.
Just close me in a room with this wiki or this knowledge base or whatever, and just let me do my thing, and I'll come out.
I need 5 cans of Mountain Dew sugar-free game fuel and to be left alone for several days.
Oh, God. So actually, like a knowledge base for Amped Guard, I mean, that's the Amped Wiki in general, but there are a lot of things that I wish there were guides for that would go on the Amped Wiki. Just like, how to run an audit and stuff like that, that is always handed down PM to PM. Yeah. Or how to file your NPO taxes, which is also, man, PMs just have a tough job.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, basic stuff like that is like needs to be step 1, step 2, step 3. And I wish we had more like that. I wonder if that's something I can do for the Amped Wiki.
Well, we also have here our current Prime Minister, Daschle, when they were their local Prime Minister, wrote a fantastic Prime Minister's guide that I will see if I can send you, because this kingdom is very big on documentation, which does not come from just me. It was my partner is also a very documentation process driven person. Mm-hmm. And so when I got here, a lot of the stuff that I'd always wanted was already built. And that was truly a gift.
Yeah, it's something I'm trying to do. Like my personal documentation is amazing, but the kingdom's documentation is lacking. So I'm putting basic, we did not have a formal process for removing players from our kingdom until after Clan, when they were like, hey, you guys should probably have this already. And I was like, yeah, we should. We don't have anything. Oh God. There's just 40 different versions of our logo and 10 different versions of our Kapora, and that's it.
Yeah.
We've made this map of our kingdom. Does that help you with this question? You can, any of you at any time can send me a first draft of a document and say, could you revise this? And I will happily sit through and edit that document.
No, we're going to edit that out. We're going to edit that out. We can't do that to you.
No.
I only offered this to 3 people. How bad could it possibly be? I said, knowing the answer.
we promise it won't make it past this.
Big winky face.
Big winky face.
It is a thing. It is a thing that I enjoy. I can work with people that I don't necessarily enjoy the company of. If all they say is, "Could you review this document before I submit it?" Absolutely. It's just, yeah.
So looking at the Master Dragon, Master Smith, I mean, do you feel like there's a second belt in your future?
Yeah, it was actually set to be awarded my Serpent Belt at Rakis, which is the Iron Mountain summer event. And then, for some reason, Rakis didn't happen. So that was approved by the circle and was offered to me and is definitely possible in my future. But I'll be the outgoing monarch in mid-December, and I absolutely do not want to speak for the incoming monarch.
Right.
So theoretically.
Yeah, we're in an awkward position where I took my first term at the beginning of March before coronavirus really got super serious. We were all like, are they going to lock down? Probably not. It's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. And so, upon taking the seat, our GM COK, who is Sir Flo, comes to me and says, hey, there's 4 Knightings on your plate. Do I'm gonna read them off to you. You tell me what you think, and check. They're all great. They're all great people. So we're gonna approve them all. Mm-hmm. And so I made the announcement. I said, hey, we're gonna be knighting these 4 people. Here's the events that it's going to happen at. And then 2 weeks later, coronavirus hit. And I'm now on my second term. It's going to be a full year, and the next monarch is going to have those kind of rubber stamped and be expected to issue those. So sorry, whoever that happens to be. I didn't mean to put that on you, but there you go.
See, now that's a reason that I would want to run for monarch. Is I'd kind of like to knight those people.
At least some of them.
Right.
There's always one. Fuck that guy.
I'm doing a virtual knighting on Saturday. My friend Kelladry was supposed to also get knighted at Rakis, and when we canceled Rakis, she and I were both just like, well, we'll see that again in 1 million years. And so eventually, after we talked about it, and after Colorado had been in various states of lockdown and quarantine for long enough, she was like, I would do it online. And I was like, I can organize an online event for sure. So I have a box full of shipped gifts that I need to drive over to her house on Saturday morning so she and her partner can open them. And there's a few things. We're going to do the best we can with the intent of then at a future event, we'll have a quote unquote vigil, a post-knighting vigil, so that we can all celebrate in a different way. But I think I think that one of the only things that can be done relatively well is like awarding people. We have lots of time to think, and thereby we can catch up on stuff that maybe should have been awarded before. And I think this is definitely that kind of case.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I have been in favor of virtual knightings during this time, but none of our knights want to take it. None of our upcoming knights.
And it's a personal thing. Like, I get if you don't want that, but there is a little bit of it too. Like, as a person who like turned down awards in the past at like a high level, sometimes you don't get those back for like 2 to 3 years because people go, oh, you have them, and then they don't think about it. So like, yeah, I understand wanting to do it in person, especially if you're like an outdoors person and you're like, oh, I really want to be in the woods. Like, I get that. But I think a virtual knitting can be just as good as long as everybody who is muted, who isn't currently talking.
Why turn down high level awards? Is this just a you didn't feel you'd earned it kind of thing, or like are you secretly a Bob who doesn't accept roses? What's the deal?
No, I when I got my 10th dragon and 10th rose, I got them at the same time. And my 10th dragon, which is in a beautiful like carved folio style, it's beautiful. Said again, like we mentioned earlier, for all of her work. And I just sort of sat there and stared at it for a long time. And I was kind of in like a lull. This would have been like, hang on, it might be in here. It's not in here. I'll have to look it up. But it's like 2012, 2013, I think. And I looked at that and I sat on that for a whole year. And I was like, I'm going to give that back. I don't like this very much. I don't like how I feel when I have it. I don't think I'm as good as like, my knight is Serpent Knight, and like a couple of the first knights that were made in Canada were also Serpent Knights, and people that I really respected and admired. And I thought, I have to care about, and I have to appreciate my own work before I will take this back. And I didn't get it back until 3 years later. And by that time I was like, I'm a very good artist.
Right.
People pay me human money for this. But I still didn't push it because there was no, there are times to push awards and times where it's kind of like, it'll happen one day. Although I did kind of sow the seeds of like, to people that I cared about being like, I think I'm ready for this when there is a person who thinks that might be a good idea. So I didn't really like lobby for it, but I was like, okay, now I haven't changed my mind. I have gone through more stuff and I figured it out.
No, it's still the idea though of saying like, I understand you want to give me this award, but I'm not ready for it, and giving it back. That's, I mean, I know Sir Gillen has a story about this as well, almost being given his sword belt, but declining it and then getting it later. I mean, that's, I don't know it's like big dick energy, but for awards. I don't know how to phrase that.
Big document energy.
There we go.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing because people don't understand why people told me they didn't understand why I would do it. People said I needed to like shut up and deal with the fact that I got an award. But I'd also seen the award culture in that realm that was the other way, where people like burned their awards and like handed them back directly to the person awarding them. And I thought that was garbage because that person has gone out of their way to do something nice for you.
Absolutely agreed.
Very privately.
I mean,
like,
that's a thing with one specific household, right? The Bobs do that as a matter of principle, or do I have that weird?
So if they get a rose, they burn it, but they burn it that night around the campfire at the Bob camp. I think was my understanding, and it's a thing where the reason that they're doing it is because they don't feel like you should be awarded for service. They feel like you should just do service if you want to do service.
Yeah, well, you can't burn entries in the orc, so fuck you, nerds. Take your roses and be happy about it. Stop burning expensive award paper.
But no, I'm with you. I've seen awards that were turned down at court, and it's always a little, it's always
so
a little
rough.
awkward. I mean, you have to think too that on some level, your friends or someone put in for that as well. Yes. And so if you're going to be turning it down, that's a personal choice for you, right?
And is okay. Just
and is
don't
okay.
do it in front of everybody.
But there's a tactful way to do it, I think.
I would just scribble the name out on the award and give it to the next person I called up. I'm giving you your 10th dragon. I don't deserve it. Okay.
It's basically like
Greg.
the equivalent. It's the equivalent of that Vine that's the kid getting the avocado and being like, an avocado.
Yes.
Thanks. Like putting it away. That's literally the equivalent. Funny though, I did do the award scribble situation. The G I got knighted at, I was also warocrating because I don't understand what downtime is. And so I got a 7th lion for running the game, like scheduling the games, running the tournament. But partway through the tournament, I got heat stroke, and the champion ran the tournament for me. And so I went to the monarch after getting my 7th lion at court and being very stressed out about it. And I scratched out my name, and I wrote his name, and I scratched out 7th. I wrote 5th. I looked it up, and then I went to the monarch and I said, I'm going to give this to Noodles now because he did the work, and it's a 5th lion. And the monarch went, yeah. And I just handed the award over and explained to him, like, I don't need this. You did a bunch of work. And he also didn't want to take it. And I was like, no, it's a 5th. Just please take it.
Okay, there's 2 ways you can go with this. The first is I would frame that award and hang it on my wall. But the other way you can go with it is everybody scratches it out and gives it to another person they think are worthy until you run out of space for names.
Yeah,
It's like a disc golf disc.
It's the brotherhood or the sisterhood of the traveling lion.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love any award that's just a little bit like when I am directly, indirectly responsible for the naming of the Kingdom of the Nine Blades. And when I was the monarch, there were awards when I was younger that were given out to everybody. Like the monarch would go, it is time to be, everybody has this name or this like suffix or this non-noble title. And I decided, I thought that was great. And so when I was the principality monarch, I decided I would give an award to everyone. And so everyone at that time was allowed to take son, daughter, or child of the 9 blades. And it's important to mention that we were not the 9 blades at the time that I gave out that award. I took that from the Saturday morning breakfast cereal comic about Canada and the flag, and I thought, what a funny time we're all going to have with this cute award. And then we voted on kingdom names, and somebody suggested that, I think, also as a joke, and then it was not a joke. And then it was the name. and then AI was like, does the man from the comic know that you took his name and you're going to put it on an intellectual property? So I had to email the creator and be like, I have done a terrible thing. And I like explained it to him, and the response I got back from him was like, this is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Good job.
That's amazing.
Shit.
I would frame that too.
And then I had to send it back to him, and I had to send it back to AI and be like, here's the email. I keep meaning to. I have to figure this out. I want to send him the video that Woonjo did for their bid and be like, hey, so the plot thickened more than I expected, because I think he'll appreciate that. But I was surprised he wrote me back. I think the email was just weird enough that he caught the attention. But yeah, that was all not really supposed to be a thing.
Neverwinter had a problem similar to that.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, so they're coming. Sir Golan, who was involved in the formation of the kingdom, comes to the rest of the kingdom and says, hey, should we really be using Neverwinter? Because there's this new video game that's coming out. And it's kind of got the same name, and it's made by a really reputable company.
Oh, boy.
And they're like, oh, no, it'll be fine. And then they also had to go through...
I think they had the name first, though. Like, the kingdom had the name first, correct?
By a very small margin, yes.
Yeah.
By a not enforceable margin.
Yeah, that's what I said. Did I say it weird?
Yeah.
It's basically like coming into your team and being like, I've decided to name my video game Divinity Original Sin 2. This is our new kingdom. Is that going to be a problem for anybody? Please don't tell Larian Studios. I don't want them to know.
Yeah, right. It's fine. We'll just call it Baldur's Gate 3. It'll never come out. It'll be fine. Oh, fuck.
Rip.
Oh, it's awesome that he wrote you back, though. Like, that is fantastic, and you've got permission.
The email verbatim says, that is absolutely hilarious and amazing. Thanks, and please don't worry about any rights stuff.
Yeah. I actually have it in my notes here to put that 9 Blades petition video in to the show notes, because that was one of the coolest things that I've seen.
So what is it? I haven't seen it.
Okay, so just before we started the podcast, Teflon had a video where it's a group petitioning to join our kingdom, and it's all the people of the group saying like, hey, we're from
Howling Pines?
Yeah, Howling Pines, and this is the Howling Pines spirit, and you should let us into your kingdom, even though they've already been approved. And
do they know that?
They will by now.
No, they don't. And this podcast will come out after they've been approved. So I think it's funny either way.
Fabulous.
But it's one of those, but for the whole kingdom. And they had people like from all of their different parks come in and say, we are the Nine Blades. Like that was the through line for the whole thing was we are the Nine Blades. I am the Nine Blades, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it must have been, I'm overdoing it, I think, but like 200 some odd people.
The whole video all told was probably easily, it felt at least like there were like 100 different people from all of the, like as many people as they could get to do a video. And watching it from here, from Colorado, was like gut wrenching because these are people that I've known since I was 16. And so like partway through, and like Cabbage can probably attest to this, I had to turn my camera off because I was crying so hard. Like I could not stop crying. And I felt good because the other two reps, like the Nine Blades, Principality Monarch, and the Bid rep were also crying. So that made me feel better. But like it was like, even knowing the history and having been an active part of it, like something about seeing that video just really like sent me.
Well, I mean,
basically.
It was really well done too. Like
yeah.
it was done in such a way that it was kind of like emotional, but I loved the thing. It's as far as like, hey, let us be a part of your game. That's the coolest thing anyone's ever done.
Yeah, I think I thanked Wunjo, I think like 100 times afterwards, being like, this was great. Everybody had a good time. Like it was very moving. Like I think you did a great job. I don't think I can underline like or overstate that enough that helped. I think that may have helped push some people over the edge who maybe weren't 100% sure. And yeah, that was a very good moment personally.
Yeah, and Wunjo is now leading the V9 committee as well. So if you've been seeing those surveys, you at least have seen some of Wunjo's work. That's what he's currently taking.
He's also the creator of Phoenix League. He's a very well-traveled, very talented, very talented young man.
Good for him. So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but you have gotten, well, actually we've been touching on it pretty much the whole podcast. You have gotten to play Amped Guard in two pretty distinct areas and at two pretty distinct times in your life. There's a lot of people that play Amped Guard the same way that they used to talk about the way that people lived back in the day. You never travel more than 9 miles away from your home.
Oh, I thought people just got stabbed more.
Okay.
If you go too far out, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Okay. If you visit Texas, if you visit Texas, you just get stabbed and then knighted. I think is how it goes.
Nice spelled. Willingly dropped.
Willingly
after
dropped,
some time to think about it.
Yeah. But so you have this kind of unique perspective because you've gotten to see different kingdoms and at different phases of their journey to kingdom, and then even seeing your original group, come up and get kingdom later. What do you have something that you've learned from the experience of being in those two different times in your life and two different park areas and things like that might help young groups that are kind of just getting their feet under them Amped Guard wise?
I'll say this and then I'll put a caveat on it. Travel is very important. That said, travel in, this year with, as anybody knows who's gone to any level of like online classes for any kingdom right now, travel can be done. Participation in other groups can be done without leaving home if like leaving home is not an option for you, physically, financially, whatever the case may be. But it is very important to at least observe how other parks live, because the thing that always happens between like me and like friends of mine here who have played for 6 years or something is that they'll say, why is this like this? And I'll say, it's always been like this, which is bad.
We don't problems with that lately.
Yeah. and sometimes before I left, before I moved away from Ontario, I rewrote the Golden Veil Corpora, which was done with the board of directors members at that time. And we submitted it and it passed. And we had a member of our team who'd only been playing for about 4 years, and he kept asking us why stuff was in the Corpora, and I would get super defensive about it. And then I would read it and I would go, oh, this literally refers to having a fixed crown location. Like that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And it's important to see how other groups live, because you'll understand like pitfalls that you might encounter down the line. Like if you're a high school park, there are decent odds that if you're like my high school park when I was growing up, every player group will date in some way, and then anytime there's a breakup,
has no idea about that at
No,
all.
not at all.
Oh boy, you'll have like relationships that will end, and that will really like change
Tear
your park
parks apart.
You'll have people move away, and like that'll leave a big void. Or you'll have a college level group, and an adult, like a much older adult, will be like, oh, it's time to play, and that seems nice, and they'll bring stuff that you're not familiar with. So understanding other parks and other kingdoms gives you an idea of what's out there, and that can be very helpful for the times where somebody says you can't do that, and you're able to go, the Kapora says I can, or the rulebook says I can. Like the sooner you learn the parameters, the less people can push you around who are actually incorrect. And especially with parks that have younger players,
Right.
it's very as much stuff as you can absorb. It's good, because then if somebody tells you to do something that seems wrong, you'll be able to be like, I'm absolutely not going to do that. Like you can't trick me into doing this. You can't trick me into drinking this entire bottle of Fireball all at once.
Kapora doesn't say anything about that.
Or I'm going to do it or not do it.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to choose to do it. But yeah, getting to know other parks, big one. Getting to see other people's stuff, big one. I would have said, 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said watching a lot of video content, but I think our video content phase has like faded out a little bit. It's like now just starting to come back up, where we're seeing like channels that are ongoing.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the pitfalls that I fell into, that I dug myself out of later on, not without digging down a bunch first, were learning how to interact with people who weren't from where I was from, and accepting that things that I had always done were not necessarily the best way. That helped a great deal, because then I was open to when people, want to run a tournament in a different format. They can explain to me why, and I can not go, well, this is stupid and I'm not going to do it.
Right.
It's just the kind of stuff you can do without leaving your house, basically.
Right.
So tangentially related, are there any kind of weird or different traditions that happen between the two different kingdoms that you've been in?
The Bardic part we've definitely already touched on. Bardic is essential to Canadian and Golden Vale events. It happens usually on Saturday night, campfire situation if possible. In the Iron Mountains, we have the Order of the Tactician, which I think is just the coolest weird thing that that a lot of kingdoms have never heard of. That's basically for like being. Cabbage might find this funny. We were talking the whole time at this Circle of Monarchs about putting in an award for being good at battle games to get a knighthood, which inherently I don't really have a problem with. And then I looked at Tactician and I was like, do we already kind of have that award? And could we maybe use that? So it's an award for being good at battle games. So like whether that's you're good at one class or you did really good in one battle game, like the level sort of scales. And the idea of awarding people for that was like, well, that's nothing the first time I heard it. And then seeing how excited people get when they get a Tactician, the more I saw that, the more I was like, okay, I really understand the purpose of this award. And I think it's very sweet because people who care about it care a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a void, like with our knighthood system, it's a void that, our rulebook takes 85% of the rulebook is like rules for battle gaming and stuff. And we just don't have a real reward for it other than Paragon, but that's kind of tangentially related.
Yeah, and it to me, it's one of those things too where we talk about, and this may be a winner's edge thing, but we always talk about wanting more role play, wanting more more people to participate in the battle game and to take it seriously,
more involvement in any way.
Yeah, and it's like, well, duh, you just reward people for doing that fucking thing. And for some reason, that's a hard conclusion to come to. I really hope the awards committee comes back around with something workable. Because I would love to see an avenue for people to get awarded for that.
I think, too, that some of the... What's a good way to put this? I've heard it said before that you could give awards for being really cool in battle games and making
Didn't
it
those
fun
used to
for
be
other
Griffins?
people.
For us, weren't those griffins, or was that a different thing?
No, Griffin was for chivalry and honor on the battlefield. What I'm talking about specifically is making sure that other people are having fun. So like Teflon goes out dressed up as whatever and is playing a really good monster and things like that. And that could then lead towards service in some way. In light of having another knighthood that was specifically battle game related in some way, because you are providing a service to the people of Amtgard, right? You're making it more fun and more...
Theoretically, that could be dragons as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Dragon covers a wide swath. Dragon also covers roleplay, by the way.
Yeah, and that's what Saint O'Banion was knighted for.
He had a Masterhood mask.
Yeah.
Like, but it was one of those, like, before award standardization, and we just moved everything over. So, like, who really knows? But yeah, essentially, yeah, it is just Dragon at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm looking here, and I keep seeing this symbol everywhere, and it's one of those things that when I see it, I latch onto it. But Ministers of Grace, that's a household that you are affiliated with? Are you a full member? What's that like?
We don't have you anymore, do we?
I reckon we don't, but it says we're still connected. I'm going to pause. Okay, so sorry we had a brief disconnect there. We were talking about the Ministers of Grace, and I keep seeing the symbol pop up. We here have a very close friend who was in the Ministers of Grace, and it's always got a very, I guess, a lofty kind of goal where it's to combat apathy within Amtgard. Tell us about that a little bit if you can.
Yeah, I'm not 100% confident I remember how I got into the Ministers of Grace. So I'm friends with a number of the people in it, and I think part of the way that happened was there were people like Lyndon, like Watt, that I was working with on online projects, particularly the Amped Wiki and like creating new pages and killing dead pages and stuff like that. And I got sent a tunic, which is a Ministers of Grace tunic that was owned, I think, by Petra before me, and it's got lots of holes in it. I need to figure out how to patch it. But I liked the idea of belonging to a household whose whole premise was like getting work done, and then the binding force was that we were all in the same household. Like there was not a component to it being like we're working towards a goal. It was like, no, we're working towards completing things that are incomplete. And I have to say that I haven't spent enough time with a lot of people in this group, although I have known some of them for quite a long time.
It seems like it's one of those households that is super scattered, and like there's people in little pockets all over the place that are part of this household, and based on the goal of the household, right, combating apathy and what have you, I mean, it kind of makes sense to have them widely dispersed, have somebody kind of everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that at the time I was definitely like their token Canadian player, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think that like I know for a while that I was one of the people who traveled out of Ontario the most, and I definitely got roped into a number of things by being a person who wasn't from America, who was visible. That's basically how I became the ombudsman also. So it's not an unfamiliar situation for me.
I'm so sorry that you were an Amtgard ombudsman. That's the shit they have to deal with. I can't even.
That is why if you were to go back and watch, please don't, but if you were to go back and watch the 14 hours of the Circle of Monarchs meeting this year, you would see that when Sir Bowen was talking about the ombudsman program, I lobbed him the softest softball I could to give him a window to complain about like the way that the project is not necessarily fair to the people who are in the role. But I was an ombudsman. My partner was an ombudsman. My best friend was an ombudsman. One of our new players here, who's currently our regent, was ombudsman. It is a job that I see the value of, and like, but I can't, like, obviously I can't talk too much about the things we do.
Right.
Some of the things we do are things where people don't understand their own corporas, and we have to send them back and go like, no, do this, and it's fine. And some of the things are like, you need to go and talk to a person outside of Amtgard about this. And it cannot
like
be
the police.
Us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People will say something and you're like, you have to tell somebody who is not us, but we will help you in whatever way we can within the confines of like the role.
Boy, I'm sorry if you had anyone come to you from Winter's Edge, because our corpora needs some work.
It's a work in progress.
If I did, I don't recall. So if there was one, it could not have been that bad.
Excellent.
Around that time, so this was 2015 to 2016, almost certainly.
It's very possible.
We're not going to name names, but I think everyone that's sitting on this table knows the kind of issue.
So I'm reminded of another story because you had mentioned, you need to go tell somebody and it's not us, somebody out of Vanguard.
Yeah.
I was at an event. I don't even remember where we were at, but it wasn't a Winter's Edge event and it wasn't a Neverwinter event. We were out on the ditch field late at night, 1 or 2 in the morning, and there were there was a fighting company across from my fighting company that was former military and was very drunk.
You said former military. We get it.
And so their leader picks up a pole and he's going down the line murder striking people. And my knight's knight was Tarjay. I understand what murder striking people means. It means that we're not playing Epgard anymore.
Right.
It means that we've moved on to another game with similar rules, but not the same rules.
Game.
And
Yeah.
so Sir Gillen, who's there, is like, hey man, he's being real calm. And, hey man, there's no reason for that. And he bucks up on him a little bit. Oh, what are you gonna do? What are you and your boys gonna do? And Sir Gillen says in the same calm voice, he said, well, if you hit me with that, I'm gonna call the police. And the guy says, what? It's totally sobering, pouring ice water down over it. He goes, yeah, because see, that's assault.
Yeah.
I don't care that it happens to have a very thin veneer of foam over the end or something like that. You're not playing our game. You're not playing by the rules. And I'm too old to get beat up and have to go to the hospital like that. I have to go to work on Monday. So yeah, if you hit like that and just refuse to play by the rules of the game that we've all agreed to, I'm just going to call the police and have you arrested for assault.
There are in general a lot of things that come to, just twice in my term alone that come to me that are like, hey, there's this issue. Can you do a ban or can you, to talk to this player? And I'm like, you need to go to the cops. Like it's cool that I'm your monarch and all, and I'm happy to help you. Yeah, totally gonna take care of that on an Amtgard side of things. But you should call the police because that's not cool. And it's like, I don't know why I'm having that. Like this is a game, right? This is like I'm having an issue and going to your D&D DM and being like, hey, what do I do about this thing? Like I can't help you. Roll a dice.
It's being a microcosm of a microcosm. Like we're a small percentage of nerds everywhere, and there is a certain element of, well, this is the last place they have to go, and like we can't kick them out of it. Yes, we can.
Yes. Yeah.
If it is important, if a person comes to your park and makes, and this is another good tip for young parks. If a person comes to your park and everybody hates that they're there every week and they make the energy bad and you don't enjoy playing with them and you don't enjoy seeing them at events, you may consider banning them. Not forever necessarily, but if you keep running into the same issues over and over and over again, I know that a lot of the times kingdoms and bigger parks only deal with like 6-month bans and above. You could just ban someone for 2 weeks. Yeah, and absolutely. That's fine. And then if you ban someone for 2 weeks and everybody's like, wow, those 2 weeks were great, you've learned something very important. And at the end of the day, it's like any other relationship. You don't owe anyone anything. If this person makes the environment bad over time or for many people in one big incident, you just tell them to like, hey man, you can't come back here anymore. And again, if they show up and you tell them that they're not supposed to be there, you can call the police. That is an option you have. If somebody shows up after you ban them, it's like, what are you gonna do? It's the same scenario.
I'm gonna call the police, and I can't kick you out of the public park that we're playing in, but I certainly can have you stop harassing my members.
Yeah,
exactly.
Something like that can have a positive effect too. We talk about bans, in a very negative way a whole lot, but this could be something where they say, I didn't realize or maybe. I'm sorry, I was going through kind of a rough patch or something like that. Yeah. And it changes the behavior.
I've never thought of bans in a negative light. Especially with some of the ones I've had to issue where like I've had multiple people come forward and say something. I'm like, well, I can have one amped garter or I can have these 4. Right. Yeah. This is a net 3. I don't this is an easy open and shut.
What I meant, and I should be more clear, is that there is negativity around the ban, not just that, like, I wasn't looking at it from the perspective of the person getting banned necessarily, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But this would be something where, like, the negativity for it would be on the singular person and the group would be benefiting, which is kind of reversed.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what you were saying.
I think Promethea also hit on a thing that's rarely looked at, and it's the micro bans or something along those lines where it's a quote unquote official thing.
You know, the
saying-
penalty box.
Yeah, the penalty box, exactly, is something we need probably to utilize more often.
Is it because she's Canadian that it's the
I was
penalty
going
box?
to make that joke, and you got in there before me. And I used to talk about the penalty system because, you know, it's universally relatable. But you know, a player blows up on field. You say you can't play in this battle game. A player blows up again. You say you can't come back today. Player blows up again. You say you can't come back next week. And you just keep doing this until eventually either the player stops and you've given them like incremental chances, or the player does not stop and you just don't need to have that person around anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was a big Bruins fan. I watch a lot of hockey. I fell off when they got rid of Tim Thomas. So
I watch almost zero hockey. I can only talk about small amounts of hockey facts, and that's by virtue of one of my longest friends being an avid Leafs fan. I will say, introducing my former partner to hockey and having a fight break out and having him be like, how long do they get to punch each other? And I'm like, kind of until we decide, like the ref decides the punching has gone on too long.
And
So as soon as
one
there's a
of them falls
minor
down.
Yeah, they're holding onto their jerseys, A, because ice is slippery, and B, because you don't want to knock somebody over and get a concussion. You don't want to end someone's career. You just want to punch them a lot.
Right.
And that is always a novelty, I think.
Yeah.
In this analogy, would our monarchs be the goalies? Like if you get into the monarch...
No. Everyone shit talks monarchs all the time. They're definitely not the goalie.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but if you hit the monarch, though, then the entire team's coming after you.
Oh, he makes a point. Yeah.
That's a good point.
More
I don't know. It's not been
Amphgard-
tested.
That means that the monarchs are allowed to leave the net and fight each other.
You can always get banned as a monarch. It's just the rest of your team has to do it. But yes, no, I'm on board with this analogy.
Don't give me this option, because there are certain monarchs I do want to fight, and like this is just empowering me.
Yeah, I try not to think about it except when I'm alone at night.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because otherwise it'll
Cabbages.
just.
King Cabbage is pulling up that other monarch shirt. Oh, he's got him tucked now, and we're going in for
they
those
lost
low
the gloves.
blows. Yeah.
More Amped Guard uniforms, more Amped Guard tunics need a fight strap. I'm telling you.
Oh, love that. Not that I condone any form of physical violence. I just like the premise.
Right.
I don't like seeing butt cracks and people don't wear belts right in that game. Like, that's what it's for. I'm guilty of this. Oh, God. What were we even talking about?
Doesn't matter now.
Yep,
Doesn't
fair
matter.
enough.
The penalty. We were talking about the penalty box and some other stuff.
Amped Guard
I'm sure.
Ombudsman.
Yeah, there you
yes,
go.
I brought it back.
goodness, yes.
No, I mean, ultimately, this is just a roundabout way of me getting to say, like, be nice to your fucking volunteers, dude. It sucks so bad. Like, some of the stuff that the Ombudsman program has to deal with, I mean, the Ombudsman program deals with a very concentrated drip of the worst stuff that monarchs have to deal with.
I think.
So tell me, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I want to. There's one important thing that we might have missed here for the people of Winter's Edge watching this. What is an ombudsman? What do
Just
they
Google
do?
it. It's fine.
No, they're listening to they want to know here.
Fair.
Yeah, you can't send them away to another website. They'll never come back. That's
Right.
That's bad marketing.
If they do they really love us?
Yeah, exactly. It's about retention in a lot more ways than one.
Right.
The Ombudsman program was started to be a neutral group of people who players could come talk to when they felt that all other methods of handling something were exhausted. The point of the Ombudsman team is more to be a sounding board and kind of like a redirection team to make sure that people have an understanding of what their options are. So if somebody comes to me and they're at a Shire level and they say, somebody in my park bullies me, what do I do? As an ombudsman, my response would be like, okay, your corpora says that you can do this. So let's find your monarch or your kingdom monarch and have you talk to them. Mm-hmm. And then maybe that is just you putting the two of them together and they've never met, or maybe you sit in the conversation while the two of them have a conversation. So yeah, the premise is it's supposed to be like a body that exists above the circle of monarchs or parallel to the circle of monarchs that handle stuff in a neutral way. And I think a lot of people think that it's a team that can overturn what kingdoms say.
Yeah,
it's not at all a thing.
It's the authoritative version of Ask Your Mother, right? Like it's I got
would
banned.
agree.
Well, just talk to the ombudsman program. Like
Yeah.
in some extent, if you think there was an abuse of power, you would go to the ombudsman program, or if you think a ban was handled improperly, you would go to them to sort of figure out your avenues.
There are times when the ombudsman program is kind of a like ask your mother situation. If somebody came to me and said like the kingdom monarch broke into my car and stole all my stuff and like the team won't ban him, that I might take as an ombudsman, I might take to Amguard International and be like, by the way, there's this report that like the Iron Mountains monarch, which is me, broke into the car, which is my partner's car, I guess, and just stole a bunch of stuff because there are sometimes paths where like there is no path back deliberately, like the Kapora has been set up so like you can't do something, but there are times where it's like there really isn't anyone else you can talk to, and sometimes it might be NPO threatening, like local, like Kingdom NPO threatening, or I hesitate to say trademark threatening based on where we are. But like that kind of stuff. If at the time when the trademark lawsuit began, if somebody had told the ombudsman like, hey, this dude is going to try to take the trademark away from us, yeah, of course the ombudsman would tell Amguard International because it puts the corporation at risk. Right. And you said something about Kapora's not having avenues. Teflon is over here shaking and I know what he's going to say, so go ahead and say it.
So I'm so pumped. a minor problem with like a fraudulent thing happen with a monarch, and so our GMR and our PM decided to ban them. Which technically, on the rule book side of things, can't happen because
there's no process for banning a monarch.
Well, it has to be a monarch and one of the other two. That's how the rule book's laid out, and we can't override the rule book, right? But we don't actually have a process of dethroning the monarch, for lack of better terms. There's definitely a better term, and I can't think of it.
I'm invincible.
Right, and that avenue is not there. It's just we don't have it. That's another thing that we need to get fixed.
Yeah. I am gonna again, I always do this when it comes up. I still think Anomaly had no good options in that case because he listens to the podcast, so we are talking directly about him. The person, what happened was we needed to fill seats on our BOD. What happened was I'm sober is the worst part. No, so what happened was we had a role to fill on our BOD. We had to fill several seats on our BOD. And nobody stepped up to do it. So finally, kind of having their hand forced, a few people in our kingdom said, we're going to do it. We'll step up. We'll join the BOD. Even if we just sit in the chair, at least we fulfilled the obligation. Sure. And it turned out that one of those people or a few of those people didn't have enough sign-ins in the very restrictive time period. It had a very strict cutoff. Didn't have enough sign-ins to actually serve on the BOD, again, per our Kapora. Right. Yeah. Nobody volunteered. Up until it was kind of like, okay, we've got the exact number of people we need to volunteer. And the monarch at the time, Anomaly, said, I'm just going to go and put some credits in for you. Again, not cool, like not something we're allowed to do, but also what other option did he have?
Sure. Yeah. And this is, so I want to go on here and state too that Anomaly, if you are listening to this, I love you, brother.
We should have him on to talk about it because
that would be really
I genuinely think that was a shitty situation. Yeah, he took it like a champ. Yeah. But I still don't think he deserved it.
So here is my feedback on that situation. And I've talked about this privately with other people, but since we brought it up on the podcast, I'll say it here. Yeah. There are a couple of different ways that could have worked out where it would have been a positive thing. Sure. One could have been just a tacit admission that we're in this situation where we don't have enough seats to fill our board of directors. The monarch, the prime minister, and I would like to appoint some people who technically don't meet the requirements by our Kapora, but are willing to do it right now.
This is an emergency all thing kind of deal.
Yeah.
We am in the Kapora right now to make this change.
Yeah. And so we would they don't meet the requirements to take the office right now, but they're willing to do it. They didn't run because they didn't meet those requirements, and so we would like to appoint them. I guess what I'm trying to say here is, and this has come up for other things in our kingdom too. Some that
I'll point out that the timeline for that was such that an emergency all thing probably wouldn't have happened fast enough.
Correct.
Because we had to file our NPO taxes. Like we were up to the deadline and we needed to do it and have the signature of whoever serves that seat on the BOD, like the head of the BOD, by like 2 days from the time he made that decision.
Right.
So even if we tried to do it appropriately, I still don't know that he had an avenue.
And again, that's a hole in the potentially the hole in a Compora that we need fixed, or
That we
some
need
kind
next
of
all
leeway.
thing is soon.
Right.
This is, so we can't dig ourselves out of the bad situation that got us there. We can patch it later.
Right.
We can shore it up later, but we can't dig ourselves out. I have always taken this tact, and I feel like it is always the best approach. So if anyone in Winter's Edge is serving as Monarch later, or for you, Anomaly Brother, this is for you too. If you're in a situation where you're just stuck, and that's what you were stuck, go to your people, publicly announce it. Like,
that is the one thing I think he could have done better, is it wasn't communicated at all. That's, I think, where the rub truly was.
I won't say that we're not unreasonable. We are sometimes, but we are not so unreasonable that if you come and say, listen, guys, this is what's going on. This is a situation that we're in. This is how I would like to handle it. I technically don't have the authority to do this.
Yeah.
But I'm asking you guys, because we need to get this done, is it okay to make this emergency appointment in this one situation for this limited amount of time, or however you'd like to word it, and then we can fix it after, right? Keep things in the light. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is have some faith in your populace. Always, you have to be beyond reproach, because people will find out. We live in this digital era where we get to see everyone's thoughts every day, and what they had for lunch and who they were hanging out with, because of the pictures that go up on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of these other things. I don't think pictures go up on Twitter, but you get where I'm going with
do.
it.
Yeah, no.
They do. It's okay.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
And I'm such a boomer.
Twitter now has stories. They call them fleets.
I hate everything about it. That is how I know I'm getting old. They've introduced a new feature, and I think, I don't like this because it's different.
They could have called them yeets.
Oh,
I'm just saying.
big missed opportunity.
I know, right?
But yeah, it's one of those things where I've been in that mindset before, definitely as someone who's served in different offices. You sometimes get this bunker mentality because there's a lot that you, by the nature of your job, cannot discuss with your populace. Not in the way that you want to, because it's sensitive information, it's personal information for someone or something else, right?
Yep.
But take a moment when you run into a real brick wall like that and say, is this something that it's actually okay to just openly talk with my populace about and see, because one of them may have a solution that you may not have thought of.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's true.
So yeah, it was an unfortunate situation all around. And let's not forget that it started up because we just couldn't get enough volunteers in that met the specific criteria at the specific time that this was...
Maybe it's because our volunteers don't get treated super well. Hey, I brought it full circle. No, I mean, again, we've got to encourage people to step up. I just wanted to put, kind of shine some light on that, because I know Anomaly actually does listen to the show. He's messaged me about it, and I don't want to feel like we're talking about him under the table. Like, everybody knows what's up, and just address it directly. Anyway... with that kind of out of the way, that was a long segment on the ombudsman program and volunteers and everything else. Just kind of going through your Amped Wiki again, there's a lot of cool stuff here. You have notable accomplishments, and then you have favorite accomplishments, which I think is a great differentiation.
I recategorized everything for my own benefit, because like I think the base template is like notable accomplishments, and that's it. And I was like, some of these accomplishments are not what like people would look, when you're looking at notable accomplishments. I think my page lists like all the monarchy roles that I've held and that I was on the XCOM and a bunch of other things. But there's just like some stuff that I did that I think I really enjoy that's not necessarily, it's not necessarily what other people might consider cool, but they're cool to me. And so they got their own section.
Yeah, you've got given a firm handshake in lieu of awardable efforts.
Yeah. So Elm, friend of mine, very long time, very good person, asked the kingdom if I could have my fifth lion. I think we were Barony, so it would have had to have been above what we could award. And they said no. And he had to award other lions. And so he awarded other lions down the row of like, I think a group of us did an event or something. And he got to me and he said, they told me I couldn't give you one. And here is a firm handshake. And I laughed so hard that even though it was something that should have been like inherently a bad thing, that is I can picture that in my mind still. It was so funny and probably a very good way of deflecting what could have been a really unpleasant situation otherwise.
Right. Oh, God. We are approaching, goodness, almost 2 hours. We had a weird stop in the middle, and so I'm trying to rectify it.
I'm sorry. So for our audience at home and for you, we kept on having a mic feedback ticking, and I was going crazy trying to figure out what it is because of OCD, and it was my laptop. Every time so I pull up Discord to make notes while we're talking, and I have a timer that runs. And apparently something on my laptop was causing all of that to...
There's some kind of crosstalk or something.
Yeah, to make some ticking noises. And then when I tried to fix it, I blew the whole podcast. I literally shut everything down, and we had to tell Promethea, like, I'm sorry, Sir Flo broke it.
Yeah. Well, if my math is right, and there's absolutely no guarantee that it is, we're encroaching on like an hour and 40 or so. We like to sort of clip at 2 hours.
Fun part.
Right. So we always like to find out, what's your either... funniest Amtgard story or coolest Amtgard story or favorite Amtgard moment. And if you have multiple, feel free. But, do you have anything that stands out to you in your time in Amtgard that is something you'd like other people to know about or that you think is just cool that people should hear?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of like favorite versus moments that I think are super cool. I'll talk more about Wunjo because he... again, a person I've known a long time, makes me very happy. One of my favorite things that I've ever participated in is prior to Phoenix League, Wunjo wrote a series of what he called bubble quests. He built an entire parallel questing concept where your characters from Amtgard could go and play in all these other worlds, but I guess you could consider them like, what if your Amtgard character got to do things in VR? Is like the best way that I can describe it.
You so would like be Sword Art Online, but Amtgard.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Yeah, those are like pretty apt comparisons. You would play your character. You would go to an underwater world. You would go to like a clockwork steampunk world, and you would like do a quest, and you got points at the end of it. And you got to use those points to spend on like relics that like only worked inside those quests, so you couldn't take like a super crazy relic outside, or you'd have a relic that was like, it's for underwater breathing, and you'd go into a bubble you'd never been in before, and you'd be like, this is a desert, I've made a terrible decision. Right. And I loved these so much, and like Tyler knows like how important those things were to me, and they're very formative. And we started working on those together after a while because I really enjoyed like NPCing in them and helping write them. And he worked AV, so he would be up until like 3 a.m. I worked at a bar, so I would be up until like 1 or 2 a.m.
Right.
He would drive to my house across the city and go like, we're going to the diner, which was the one diner by my house. And then we would sit there for 2 hours and we would just write stuff. And through this, we wrote a quest. I think it was because I had just finished playing Portal. There's definitely a Portal element in this.
Was it a triumph?
A huge success. We wrote a quest where we gave people pets to take care of, and they had to do all these, like, there were fights and stuff, and they had to do all these trials. They had to like walk a balance beam while holding their pet. And originally this was the kind of thing where we thought like, oh, we're gonna use eggs. But we didn't have time to boil eggs, and we're like, okay, well, we need something like inexpensive but fragile, something that like they will feel like they actually have to take care of or guard in some way. So we bought kiwis. It was summer. Kiwis were very inexpensive. Okay. We bought like $10 worth of kiwis, which was a lot of kiwis. Yeah. And we gave them to everyone. We said, you are going to take these. Oh my God. We called them because they had no arms or legs or eyes or anything like that. We called them holeless puppies because they didn't have any. You see where I'm going with this. So we said, okay, here are all the trials you have to do. You have to teach them how to fly. You have to walk across a balance beam over this like big moat. You have to protect them from these big creatures that want to eat them because they're so small. You have to convince the border guard that you can take them to their homeland so they can like be free and grow up, and that involved like sticking glitter foam to them to make them look like, what somebody was like, this is my son, and somebody was like, I'm elderly and this is my nurse, and my friend Elm was like, this is my son. Were you from Street Fighter? and the border laughed so hard because we were very like free with like, come up with free form thinking, and like that's the best kind of quest there is. We laughed so hard that we like let him go. And what they had to do is at the very end of all these trials, they had to put the puppies in a field, and they had to walk away, and they could not look back or the puppies would die. And at the end, everybody was like, I'm very stressed about this kiwi that I left in a field.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
We ran it again at other parks, and they all had the same experience where they were like, why did you make me abandon my puppy in a field? And that, like, to me is a thing that I look back on incredibly fondly because it was ridiculous. It was made up at 3 a.m. We had to go to the grocery store before we went to our park that day. And people who participated in it also remember it. And so that's like a big thing for me, that I made them feel feelings and then was like, haha, quest over now. I guess you can go get that kiwi out of the field. It's just a kiwi now.
So you're big on like documentation stuff, right? So do you have like a formatted version of this? Because I like doing battle games and quests and stuff like that too. But I struggle a little bit with making sure I have everything that I thought of on the same piece of paper or whatever. So I was curious if you had like a formal documentation of it and things like that.
If I don't, and I might, I have a quest book format and I could write it. It's not super complicated, but like my quest book format has like a props list and like minimum NPC requirements and stuff. So I don't have it.
Necessarily need the full thing, but just that format would be amazing.
The full thing would also be amazing.
Yeah, the full thing would definitely be appreciated.
Where my head went was that they had PTSD.
No.
What?
Get out.
Oh no, my mic isn't working. What happened?
So for future game runners, get your players emotionally attached to a piece of fruit and then make them abandon it.
So good.
That is correct. Yes. Emotional investment is it's the reason we like so many things. And if you can get somebody emotionally invested in under an hour, you will become a master smith, as both Wunjo and I are master
It's something
smiths.
so lacking from our game. It's amazing. I really, really love that concept.
I can't wait to see this. I don't know how, but I know Jeff's going to do this.
I'm very excited to hear about this when it happens. It'll make my day, and I'm confident it will make Tyler's day also.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome. Okay, so any other crazy stories, or should we roll the outro?
I think if I think of any other crazy stories, I'll let you know. But sometimes it all becomes a little bit of a blur, and I'm thanking whatever is out there that I managed to get a single example. So if you want to roll the outro, that is fine by me.
That's perfectly fine. I know we also put you on the spot with that, so it's always hard to come up with one in the moment. By the point that this comes out, I will have recorded a permanent outro to use. So I'm just going to say, roll that beautiful bean footage, and then the outro will play.
Oh, perfect.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or Spotify to get notified about new episodes. And make sure to follow us on Facebook for announcements and more.